Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Shannon Penrod, and you will notice that I'm flying solo here today, that my good pal Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson is not with me. She's not with me for very good reasons, so that she can be with her oldest and dearest friend, Gina, that we all love. Gina is a huge supporter of the show, and Gina's husband, Bob, passed away on Friday, and we are just devastated on behalf of Gina. We want her to know that we're thinking of her, and we're so glad that Nancy is with her. This is a terrible, terrible loss, and honestly, our thoughts and prayers are with everyone. We are glad that Nancy's there, and we'll welcome her back when she comes back, but we will soldier on here without her. I know that's what both Nancy and Gina would want. We do have a big show for you today. In just a second here, we're welcoming Vince Redmond, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and we're going to talk with him about what we can be doing right now to get ready for summer. I know that feels like a stress maker, but it's actually a stress reducer. And then a little bit later on in the hour, we are going to have Debbie Major from Xylophone, spelled with an F, not a PH. And we'll talk with her about the amazing music program that she's doing. But first of all, and then we will have some in the news to fill in, and we're going to do a recap of AutFest. That's a lot in the next hour. But first, we're going to welcome Vince Redmond. He is an LMFT and a regular here on the show. For those of you who don't know, Vince has worked for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders for many years and started as a therapist, and now he's a big important licensed marriage and family therapist, and he is the director of CARD Family Services, which is an amazing, amazing resource for families that are in this intervention and need help and support of different kinds. So Vince joins us about once a month to talk with us about a specific topic. Thank you for coming and joining us again, Vince.
Always a pleasure.
And you and I spoke a little bit briefly yesterday, and we said we were going to talk about summer. And I know for some people they're like, summer, it just, it's May 2nd. But you were pointing out that sometimes when we can get a little bit ahead of things, it can actually, before it gets stressful, that it can actually reduce it. So what kinds of things should we be thinking about right now?
Well, and I know you and I made a good point when we spoke yesterday about, how schedules sometimes are inconsistent during the summer because camps are at different times, and sometimes it's, in the afternoon, sometimes in the morning, and families have often, left their schedules as open as possible for ABA treatment, which is understandable as well. However, this is the time to really meet with the supervisor, meet with your ABA, supervisor, start talking about what the plans are. What do they see from summer? What types of events, activities, and things would you guys agree upon to do for the summer, as well as, what resources and things are within your area? This is the time to plan because schedules are now being made for the summer. Schedules are starting to work out for the summer. And this is the time where we can do this before that crunch time comes and all the schedules are already set. And then we try to look into getting them into, different activities, events, and camps and so forth.
Yeah, I was really thinking about this last night, Vince, after we were talking about how there's a little bit of hopeful mind reading that goes on that isn't very productive. That the parents are thinking, oh, I hope we get a program that's this, this, and this. And the scheduler is like, oh, I'm hoping to get this child this much therapy during these hours, and I hope that the family is keeping themselves available for what I'm trying to do, and that just a little communication can make the likelihood that that success of getting what people want actually happens.
Absolutely. And like you and I spoke yesterday, I know for the kids that I still supervise, I've already started to talk to the families about what are the plans for the summer. What are they looking for the summer? Vacations, camps, different programs, those types of things. When would they like therapy? When can we, that kind of thing, because, their schedules are sometimes different, sometimes they're the same. And so the schedules might not change all too much from what we're doing now in the spring. But again, that communication now, and like you said earlier, while it kind of heightens our anxiety a little bit because we're already talking about summer and changes that are coming, when those changes actually come, we should be a lot less anxious and a lot more, knowledgeable of what we're going to do for the summer.
And just to clarify, because we talk a lot here about prioritizing your ABA hours, that doesn't mean that you can't do other things. It just means that if it comes down to, well, you can get therapy at this time, or you can take the Gymboree dance class, and you can't move the Gymboree dance class to another time, that you prioritize and do the ABA. But a lot of times, if you plan ahead, you can say, well, we'd like to take this Gymboree dance class that only happens at this time. If that's the only time we can do therapy, we're not going to do it. But and then they can fit the puzzle pieces around, or they can say that's not going to conflict and go ahead and sign up for the Gymboree dance class.
Right. It's a lot easier to do it now. And like you're saying, moving those puzzle pieces around before the schedules are completed and finished, right? Because we can mark that time off and then look at another time, either morning, afternoon, another day, those kind of things to fulfill the ABA hours. It becomes much more difficult when the schedules are complete, because they're complete for everyone. And as we know, that's a tapestry of therapists that are woven in and out of all different cases throughout the center. So to make a change at that point, now we're just not only disrupting their schedule, possibly many other family schedules as well. So if we do this in the beginning, we're able to have the best of both worlds, oftentimes, where they're able to do those extracurricular events, as well as not jeopardize their ABA treatments at all.
Absolutely. Now, the asterisk also here is, though, that a lot of this, we don't want to send a message that parents can go and get their schedule locked and loaded right now, because a lot of places are getting the availability from the therapists because their schedules change in the summer too. Some of them have summer classes, some of them take vacation, some of them, are moving, doing whatever. So just know that you're starting the conversation right now, but not having an expectation that somebody is going to be able to give you a, yes, this is what it will be right now, because it's all contingent on when the therapists are available. Is that right, Vince?
That's true. Very, very true. But the other thing is what we're looking at now is actually just starting to think of what are the options for the summer. What are some of the things we want them to do for the summer? We've spent our time so far talking about the scheduling of it, but it's also just as important just to look and see, what do we want to do for the summer? Is it a swim class? Is it, like you're saying, Gymboree? Is it, maybe it's just a vacation? Maybe it's just, hey, we're going to be gone for this week. And so that we're able to talk to this, to the staff on how we can rearrange schedules so that your child doesn't lose any treatment, so that they're still able to maintain their level of treatment even with that, the summer vacation in between, and then aid support. Maybe they want to do a camp. Well, is aid support allowed? Can we provide aid support there? What's the need? So all of these things are great to work on now, so that when we're ready, June, whatever it is, 1st or June the 15th or whatever the date is in your office, there's already a skeleton of a plan in place. Now it's just a matter of making that happen.
Right. And I like to always think, because I'm a former teacher, and we will start talking very soon here on the show about the great summer slide. And this is not just about kids that are on the autism spectrum. In fact, quite to the contrary, teachers talk about the summer slide because it's what happens from the last day of school to the first day of school. Neurotypical kids will lose some of what they learned if it's not maintained over the summer. And this is horrifying to a teacher. We hate summer slide, but I will tell you, from an autism parent's perspective, it's something that you go, well, if the rest of the kids are going to slide back a little bit and my kid is making a whole lot more progress, we're going to get closer to caught up. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
and it can be a very exciting thing for an autism parent of like, okay, maybe my child is in 5th grade, but their reading is at a 3rd grade level. And now they're going into 6th grade. So what can I do during the summer? And I think that's really how you got to look at it. Where are the gaps? Where is my child the most behind, or what can my child most benefit from? And then see what's available. And there's lots of options, aren't there, Vince?
Oh, there's tons of options. Lots of different, activities that they can get into socially. There's academic activities they can get into. We can even create schedules at home for things that they can work on outside of treatment, right? I think one of the biggest anxieties that I see with families going through the summer is there's a lot more unstructured time than what happens with children in school, right? They're home for that extra 30 if they're not going to ESY school, they're home for another 30 hours or so a week. So how do we fill that time? And some of it is we should fill that time with structured time, either it be working on their writing, working on their math, working on their reading, working on their, task taking, doing different academic worksheets and those types of things. That can be structured into their summer schedule so that they don't have that summer slide, that they are able to maintain the skills that they've learned, but also in treatment, they're going to continue to gain skills as well.
Yeah, and right about now, this time of year, often schools will have some sort of open house or
Yeah.
exhibit night or something like that. And one of my favorite things, and I think you were the one who taught me how to do this, Vince, is go to your child's open house and see all the wonderful work that they do, but then walk over to the classrooms for next year's classes. And meet the teachers and ask them, what are you working on next year, so that you can gauge, okay, he or she isn't good at that, gives you an idea of the kinds of things. So in the last hour, a parent had written in and talked about having an issue with money. When they were teaching her child money, that there was a problem with that. And I remember them telling us in the summer before, we're going to be doing money skills. And so we were able to go back to our card team and say, he's going to have to know money. And they worked on it all summer. So by the time we got to money skills, he had it all he was aces, because he had been prepped by the team. And we also asked the team, and they said, here are some things you can work on when we're not here, whatever it is, when money or otherwise.
Planning like that is fantastic. Just to know where they're going to be at the beginning of the school year. What are some of the tasks that they're going to be working on? It'd be money, it'd be cursive writing, it'd be reading nonfiction books, what have you, so that you can see where your individual child is with those skills. Now, if they're already doing well with them and you can maintain them over the summer, fantastic. If it's something that we need to prep for, you can work with your APA team to prep for it so that they're aware of it. But the other good thing about doing that at open house is it's introducing you to the teachers and, talking about expectations and some of the accommodations that might be able to be done, so that the collaboration, the academic collaboration, can already begin even before the year starts.
Yeah, I hate it when I see parents begin to stress about this extra time. Because I think we need to flip that equation and think of it as a gift. But if we aren't prepared for it, if we don't have a plan, it's that whole thing, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And that summer can be a time where you could enjoy yourself and get a lot accomplished. But let's talk about the enjoy yourself, because how do we tell parents, Vince, and this is something that always plagues me, how do you explain to a parent who doesn't have a teaching background how to take a summer activity like going to the beach, actually have fun, and take some of the lessons that you've been doing in a session and use them at the beach without the kid knowing? I see parents who are like, that's like a magic act. How do you do that? We know therapists know how to do that. Teachers tend to know how to do that. But how do we explain that to a parent who doesn't have that kind of background?
And I think you make sure it's part of the plan, right? And that's a very good point. I mean, part of the parent meetings and parent collaborations that occur on a monthly basis with the supervisor can talk about these things. You can plan for these things. So, for example, you're planning for the beach, right? You got to get your suntan lotion and your bathing suits and your chairs and your towels and so forth. But part of that plan should be, what are we going to do while we're there, right? It's not just go play in the sand castles and play in the water. It could be labeling. It could be asking for things. It could be just following basic commands, especially safety commands when you're out in public, right? Come here and don't go that far, and those types of things. Wait, it's very important to work on, waiting and safety compliance in those things, so that you have your mindset around what are the things, the tasks work on. Again, you're not going to work on a lot of things. It's vacation, it's fun, you're going to the beach, but there are a lot of things that you can do to generalize. And this is a good discussion to have with the supervisor prior to going on these types of trips, because they can really, more individualized look at your child's program and talk about the certain things that you can really generalize while you're there.
And what I'm getting overall is that not only do you have to start to plan and think about what you want to accomplish, but the communication is the cornerstone of all this, that then you need to communicate that to your team, to the people who are scheduling your therapy, and help them by giving them the information so that they can help you to plan. That's really what I'm hearing, Vince.
Absolutely. Again, it's the community, right?
Yes.
We're all there together to make sure that these types of things are not only successful, but can be fantastic learning opportunities for the kids.
Yeah.
Incidental learning is extremely important, right? Being able to generalize and use those skills that they've taught and they've learned in a therapeutic setting to be able to actually apply it in the real world when they need it, is fantastic. It's not only good for the child, of course, but it's good for the parents because they see what the effect, they see the success, they see a skill that the child now is growing into their own repertoire.
And this summer, I think you and I are going on a trip to Washington, D.C., if I'm not mistaken, for the Autism Society of America conference. And so that will be very fun. And I know I usually travel and take my son with me because I believe in what was done to me, that somebody, I can talk to a parent forever and tell them, look, you need ABA for your child, but then and I will, and then I go, and here's my son. And that gets it done much faster. But I love to have my son with me, and I'm looking forward to going to Washington, D.C. and taking at least one day and turning it into an educational trip, talking about our government and visiting the buildings, because everything is educational. Every single moment of every single day is educational to all of us. I love to make it fun and interactive, and I'm not somebody who does a tour with a bus guide who says, look here. But that's my teacher training background, that when he was little, I would say, how many blue things can we count? So we'd work on, discerning what's blue and counting, and, everything can be a lesson every single moment.
Right.
So, or, now we'll look at social skills when we people watch and go, we'll watch a couple having coffee together, and we'll try to, just from what their physicality is, decide, are they friends? Are these people that are in love? Are these people that are angry at each other? Just from watching what their bodies are doing. Any moment, anywhere can be educational.
Right.
And it can be fun. It can be a very good time. Anyway, Vince, I know I got to let you go. I know you got things to go and do, but we appreciate you so much. You are such a wealth of knowledge. For people who are CARD clients and want to know more about CARD Family Services, where do they go to get to touch points with that?
They can reach out to their family support experts in their office. Most offices now have a family support expert, or they can always email me directly if there's any questions.
And you also have a Facebook page that is just for CARD Family Services, for CARD parents.
Yes, we do. It's CARD Parent. You would look under CARD Parents, and it would come up, and it's just for CARD parents. And you have to be invited into the group so that it stays inclusive to our families. And it's a good way to not only pick up on information, but if there's ever a question, to reach out to other CARD families. It's a good way of doing that as well.
It's a fabulous thing. We appreciate you so much. So we'll see you next month.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Vince.
All right,
bye-bye. You too. Bye-bye. That was the fabulous Vince Redmond, the director of CARD Family Services. We are going to take a break. I'm looking at the time, and then we are going to be back with Debbie Major from Xylophone. We've got a lot more show left. Stick with us. We're very excited because we're in the Noah's Ark exhibit, and we're here with Jason Porter. Thank you for taking us on this tour.
Oh, thanks for having us.
So you're going to show me around a little bit and show me some of the secrets of the Noah's Ark exhibit, right?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Cool, let's go.
Yeah.
So Jason, tell us, this is an amazing space. Why is it so incredible for children?
One of the values of the Skirball Cultural Center is taking care of the earth and one another, and so this idea of repurposing materials that would otherwise be tossed off was a big component to how we designed the galleries. It's based on, certainly the story that everyone knows is the one from the Hebrew Bible, the story of Noah. But in our research, we looked at over 200 flood stories from around the world, and many different cultures have flood stories that have similarities, and the similarities that we identified were these 3 chapters: the storm, some crazy challenge that comes to your life; an ark, a kind of means of survival, a way for a community to come together to survive; and finally the rainbow, which is this kind of symbol of hope, the second chance to make the world anew.
Love it. All right, let's take a look through, and we're going to talk about some of the learning opportunities that are available here.
We really wanted people to kind of discover what they were supposed to do. For example, this elephant has a gong in the center, and there's a little wheel here that you can turn and see what happens. But there's also some hidden things, like there's a little peephole in this polar bear, so it's kind of a moment where you could talk with your kids about what does it mean that that polar bear in there only has a small piece of ice to live on it, and you could talk about kind of the environmental issues that might be associated with it.
All right, should we go downstairs?
Yeah, let's check out the storm.
So Jason, what do you call this room?
This is called the Storm Gallery. In one side of the gallery we have a storm wall, which is all sorts of sounds and sight effects to make the storm come to life. We have this, what we call the load up. It's fairly intuitive. You put animals onto the conveyor belt and you turn the wheel and they get loaded up onto the ark. Except you can't do both at the same time by yourself. It's kind of layered in the doing, the learning that we're really interested in, which is about this notion of working together in order to accomplish something. So, when you first get on the ark, obviously you enter 2 by 2 as the story goes. And so the animals in this first section of the ark, they're not quite sure where they should be. They're a little bit nervous about who to hang out with. The gallery is really organized so that the animals are still in pairs. So we talk a lot about what are the elements of home that you need to survive. And it's really a nice kind of intro into the whole experience of being in a community, learning to be together with people who may or may not be the same as us. This gallery of Noah's Ark is unique, I think, in terms of the way that it was designed, that it offers a huge variety of experiences in a way that really accommodates people of all stripes and spots. So there are more quiet zones, like we just left in the move-in day, where you can come into this room where you have a lot of large motor things that are happening, including climbing, and we kind of have nicknamed this the arcade. It's kind of the chapter in the story where they're making new families and they're mixing with other animals that they've befriended. Oh, we have to talk about poop.
We can't do a show without talking about poop.
So, the other fact of life on an ark is that everybody poops. So the challenge is to, clean up.
Okay, so we're in the last room, very cool room. What do we call this room?
We call this the Rainbow Gallery. People really get that this is a place of hope. Sometimes there's an art-making project, that it ends in some sort of inspiration, that people feel like they're inspired to take action in the world and make it a better place.
Thank you so much for showing us everything and telling us about all the wonderful things at the Skirball Center.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning and problem solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have joining us via Skype Debbie Major from Xylophone. Debbie, are you there?
I am.
How wonderful to have you with us. Well, thank you and welcome. So let's start with you. We just saw the logo and it's behind your head right now, but it's Xylophone with an F, not a PH. We need to know why this spelling change. I'm thinking there's a reason.
So I decided to spell it differently because I felt like it was important that the population that I serve would be able to say it. And there are also 8 notes in the word xylophone now, and I'm a musician, and that's considered a scale.
Okay, I like that. So for people who don't know, tell us the brief, what is Xylophone?
Xylophone is a performing arts center for people that have a special need, all ages, all kinds of disabilities, and we also are an inclusion program. So we bring children that are typical, adults that are typical, and we share the whole experience of music and theater, dance, art, everything.
Wonderful. And so array of services that you offer. Are you in your own space or do you go to other spaces?
That's a great question also. This is my space right now that I'm in. This is our studio, but we are in other programs, senior programs, day hub programs. We do theater and other programs, and anywhere they need us.
Remarkable. So this is a very unique program. Explain to us what makes Xylophone so unique.
I don't think that there are programs that are really specialized like this for somebody that has a disability. I started this for my children. They're both disabled. They're twins. They're 27 now. And my son Gage, who loves to act and loves to sing, when he graduated from high school, asked me if he could go to a program or a college where he could become an actor. And he has cerebral palsy and autism. And I knew deep in my heart there was probably no place that I could send him. So I created this organization for my kids.
I got to be honest, some of the things I like best in life are things that come about because a person, often a mom or a dad, is behind the 8 ball and their kid needs something and they go, I guess if it doesn't exist, I guess I'm going to have to create it. And it makes some of the best things that are in the world. So I love that that's what this space comes out of. And since we're talking about family, if we have kiddos or individuals or teenagers, and what is the age range of who comes to you? What is the age range?
Oh gosh, we have preschoolers all the way to folks in their 90s that are in senior facilities that have Alzheimer's and dementia and can't move too well. So we bring music and movement to them. And we bring in babies and preschoolers to come in and do music and movement in our workshops here.
And I know a lot of families that they have multiple kids, some of them on the spectrum or some of them with a different special need and some that are neurotypical. Is this the kind of program where if they've got one kiddo who's special needs, but they've got another who isn't, can both siblings come?
Absolutely. We actually encourage siblings, parents, typical, non-typical, and we have workshops that are full of, multi-disabled people that some cannot move, some can't speak, some are very high functioning. and we blend it. I think we do a really nice job of blending everybody's sweet spot. I think everybody has a very magical part about them. And I think it's important to draw that out. So whenever we can do that, I think that's our main goal. Because I think everybody wants to have that voice, whether it's through painting or dancing or singing or acting. I think everybody wants to have that spotlight if you are a musician or into the performing arts. Not everybody is, you know, some other people are into history or whatever, but there's a certain draw of people that definitely want to come here.
Well, and we were talking in the last hour about building self-esteem, and we know the statistics are there for us that when our kiddos get to engage in the arts, that it is helpful with self-esteem, as long as it's a good art program, which obviously you are running an amazing program. And you are located in Montgomery, New York. Where is that?
That's a great question. We're about 60 miles north of Manhattan,
okay,
in the Hudson Valley region. It's a beautiful area up here. And
so are you in the Poughkeepsie area?
It's across the river from Poughkeepsie.
Okay, all right, I'm getting a beat on where you are. Okay, and right now that's where you're based and that's what you're doing. What's your long-term vision, Debbie? What's the 10-year picture for Xylophone?
This is my dream, is to have a building, an organic building where there are 8 rooms in it that have a color of the xylophone. Each room has its own color. It's a plug-and-play facility, very magical, very interactive. So when you come in, you can decide what you want to do. I think part of the challenge with folks that have a disability is that they don't have a lot of choices. They're told, you know, when they're going to therapy, when they're going to school, what to wear, and a lot of times people have to dress them. So I really like the idea of a facility or a place that's very magical, that is easily accessible to whatever you want to do. If you want to come in and record, if you want to learn to play an instrument, if you want to do yoga or dance or make scenery or be involved in a choir, or you want to be in an acting group, or anything that you have in your mind to do, that we set the room up for you. Whether it's, and for me, the sensory component is really important, because most of my children have autism, and I think it's important to regard what that sensory issue might be. So if you like the color of the room to be a certain color, or you like the temperature a certain way, or you may want a lot of sensory things to use while you're in your session, I want to have all that available.
And can I tell you something? That's going to happen. I know that. No, it is. It's going to happen. And you know how I know that? Because it's so clear and specific in your mind. In your mind, it exists. And yes. So now it's just a matter of, now it's just a matter of getting the, the actual, physical things there, but it already exists. And so I know that it will. I know that it will. But that's because of your vision and because you keep plugging on it. I love a mom who is motivated.
Thank you.
I always say MOM stands for Mom on a Mission. So that's who you are. So, okay, for people who are in the Montgomery area and want to participate and want to bring their kids and have them working with you now, what do they need to do, Debbie?
So they can go on our website, which is xylophone.org. We are a nonprofit, 501c3. It is spelled ZYLOFONE.org. They can also go to our Facebook page, where we always have a multitude of things displayed all the time. They can also call us at 845-476-8257. And somebody's always available. So come on by and check out our place. It's very magical here.
I love it. And if somebody who is watching who wants to contribute to help you to have that be a reality, same thing, they can go to xylophone with an F.org to participate. And if there's somebody who wants to have a xylophone where they are you at all interested in helping people to set up satellite xylophones?
I think it's important that every community should have a xylophone. Every town or every, county should have a xylophone in it. It's important that we regard the creativity of every person and that there's a place for them, for everybody. This should be a place that's like a no-brainer.
Well, you are an awesome MOM, and I want to thank you for being with us and talking about xylophone, and encourage people to go to xylophone.org to find out more. Thank you so much, Debbie.
It's time to talk about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with some In the News. You may or may not see the top of my head fly off. Stick around.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Johansson, and this is My Little House.
My Little House is an interactive, multi-sensory educational felt toy that I invented to help develop children's language skills.
I love My Little House.
I've been working as a speech therapist for over 20 years. I have spent my entire career working with young children. I work with children with language delays, and I have many children with significant cognitive disabilities and children on the autism spectrum. It has been a constant challenge finding toys that are fun, educational, and actually engage my students. In every preschool, since I've been a young therapist, we carry on these felt boards. Kids love them because they're soft and they're fluffy, and there's usually these little pieces that attach to these boards because felt sticks onto felt. You bring them into the activity because they're putting a piece on the board. So it's almost kind of like magic. So then I just thought, wouldn't it be great if I could just take this one-dimensional board and make it into an actual three-dimensional toy? How cool would that be?
That's the idea behind My Little House. You can spread it out flat like a 4-panel felt board, or here's the cool part. In the blink of an eye, My Little House easily converts into a 3-dimensional reversible house.
This is the outside. This is the inside.
My Little House comes with 36 felt cutout pieces that match outlines in 8 colorful rooms. And they're felt, so they stick. Each piece inside My Little House has been placed with purpose.
For instance, in the kitchen, whole, half, under, on top, inside, big, bigger, and biggest, empty and full, circle, triangle, inside, outside.
Really cool thing, I have a nonprofit, Lecotech. They are the folks that put out the Differently Abled Guide for Toys R Us. They've been doing it for 25 years. They gave me their seal of approval as a toy that they feel is a toy with purpose, and that will make a difference. But My Little House isn't just for kids on the spectrum or with significant disorders. It's also for typically developing 2 to 5-year-olds. It's a fun toy.
Oh, this is so soft. That piece goes.
Recently, I took My Little House to the American Speech and Hearing Association convention in Philadelphia, and the response from my peers was overwhelming. Hundreds of therapists, teachers, and heads of school districts wanted to order them.
It was real validation for me that this truly is a toy that needs to get out there.
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod. I'm a proud autism mom, I'm a former educator, and I am the host of Autism Live. And as all 3 of those things, I want to recommend to you My Little House. This is one of the smartest toys I have ever seen for teaching language to kids who have emerging language. Whether they're on the autism spectrum or completely neurotypical, it's a great, fun, reinforcing toy, but it's especially great for our kids that are on the autism spectrum because it makes learning fun and it makes it tactile. They have these felt shapes and they get to match them up. And I'm telling you, even the adults love to play with this. We loved this toy so much that we wanted to be able to bring it to you at a great discount. So right now, if you will go to www.smartfelttoys, and when you get to the coupon code, put in a-live.com, you'll get $5 off. Isn't that great? So I want to encourage you, go and get My Little House for all the kiddos in your life. Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time for In the News. And, okay, where do I start? I want to say a disclaimer at the beginning. that there is a group of very important people to me that are known as self-advocates. And self-advocates are individuals who are on the autism spectrum, and in most cases they are teenagers or adults, because unfortunately younger people on the autism spectrum often, by the very nature of the disability, aren't able to advocate for themselves. And when they can't, their parents advocate for them. At least we hope that's the case. That's what I hope to do as a parent. My son is almost 15, and I still advocate for him, but I advocate less and less because I allow him to advocate for himself. I want him to grow up to be able to do that, and I'm very lucky that my son can. I'm very lucky that my son can. And my son can advocate for himself because of early intervention that we got, because other people had advocated for their kids, and because I advocated for him and my husband advocated for him. So I want to be very clear that I can't think of a group on this planet that is more important to me than self-advocates, and hearing them out and having them, of course, have a right to speak whatever their truth is, and I want to hear it. I'm not going to say that I always like it, and I'm not going to say that I always agree with it, right? Because I don't agree with what carte blanche with what any one group or person says. That's the nature of life, right? But I will literally die behind the idea that they have the right to speak whatever their truth is. Okay, having said that, that's the ground rules for the discussion that we're about to have. We know that the new CDC prevalence numbers came out last week, and the new numbers are 1 in 59. And we've all had an opportunity to have our emotions about it, and to read the report and see the nuances of it. And for those of you who aren't as familiar with CDC prevalence numbers, let me just say that the very way that they measure them, when you understand it, you go, I don't think that's really indicative maybe of what's happening, right? But it is the way that they have been doing it, and we need to judge apples to apples to apples, not suddenly change the formula and judge apples to oranges. But the CDC only comes out with these numbers every 2 years, and what they look at are the number of 8-year-olds from a significant portion earlier. So we're really looking back in time and saying that the number of 8-year-olds that have autism during a specific year that is not this year is this. That's what we're looking at. It's not about how many kids are on the spectrum. We're just looking at 8-year-olds. And we're not looking at 8-year-olds in 2018. In fact, I think we're looking at 8-year-olds in 2014, which is when the last numbers came out. Okay, so you purely are looking and saying, if we're looking at the same criteria, what is the difference? Well, since 2007, we have seen a jump of 1 in 50 to 1 in 59. If you want to go back further in time, when I was at Autfest the other night, Matt Asner was talking about when his brother was diagnosed, that it was 1 in 10,000 children. Just 20 years ago. So, we're seeing an increase. And it is maddening to me when people carte blanche poo-poo this and say it's just better diagnosis. I'm referring to an article that's in Vox this week that is written by one of the most prolific self-advocates and one of the co-founders of the Self-Advocate Network. And again, I encourage him to have the loudest mouthpiece that he can have and speak his truth and speak his opinion. I'm going to use mine here. And say that this article, and I encourage you all to go and read it and support him in his efforts and stating his opinion, but see if it makes sense to you, that he says the numbers are, he says, the title of it is CDC just announced 1 in 59 children are autistic. Here's why that's not evidence of an epidemic. Now, I thought that and I thought, oh, okay, so are we going to hear about the definition of the word epidemic? Because we had a little discussion here a couple of weeks ago about the actual definition of epidemic, which autism would not apply because autism is not contagious. And nobody is arguing that it's contagious, right? So it does not apply for the term epidemic, but you can say that we are seeing an epidemic-like rise in autism. And anybody who denies that, I just don't, honestly, that to me feels like denial. And then he goes on to say the subtitle is, especially within minority groups, parents and doctors are getting better at identifying the condition. And this really is the thing that the CDC really brought home in their report. They're like, look at this. We're seeing an increase. How's this for salesmanship? We're seeing an increase in the number of diagnoses from individuals who are from the Latino community and from the African American community. So see, we're getting better at diagnosing it. Let's all pat ourselves on the back because probably this whole time, those kids were there and had it anyway, and now we're just diagnosing it better. So really we're saying that all along, even when it was 1 in 10,000, it was really 1 in 59. Although not really, because we're saying it's still not even. And we're seeing more girls on the spectrum. Eventually, what? Eventually we're going to get to the point where there are the exact number of people who are Latino who are diagnosed as are Caucasian, and then we'll go, oh, now we've got the numbers, and it was this way at the turn of the century. Really? Is that really honestly what you believe? I mean, I do believe that diagnosis has gotten better. I absolutely do. But you really believe that there are that many people, because these children that are being diagnosed, you have to realize that there are a high percentage of them that when they're being diagnosed are nonverbal. They're not staying nonverbal. And are you really saying that it's just, are you suggesting that all the people that were there before that had it that weren't diagnosed, they were all really high functioning? And that now we're having more people who are not as high functioning? I don't get it. I really don't get where this denial comes from. But I think reading this article, one of the things that he explains is that likely autism is somewhere between 1 to 3% of the population. Okay. I think that would be shocking to a lot of people. I don't think that very many people have thought in terms of 1 to 3 as we are now approaching the 2% mark. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And his argument is you got to stop saying that it's an epidemic because somehow that equals a vaccine discussion. And this is where he loses me entirely. Why does that necessarily follow? To me, it does not. We can be having a rise in autism without it being something to, the first time I'm seeing somebody equate this to vaccines is his article. Just saying. Why is that the discussion? Is it not possible that there could be a rise in autism and have it be something else? Is that not a possibility? I think this saying, no, it's just been this way forever and denying the numbers, to me, that's really scary. But his point is, he says, and if the rate of autism has long been stable, that it's always been 1 to 3%, the 1 in 10,000 number, because people were really misdiagnosing, he says, if the rate of autism has long been stable, policymakers and funders should rethink the public response to autism. Well, I agree with you there. He goes on to say, if rates are increasing, it follows that there are fewer autistic adults relative to the number of children. So he's saying there are less adults and there are more children if it's increasing. And if it's not increasing, if it's long been stable, then there are more adults and so more services should go towards adults. And that's, I think, where we've hit it, because adults have long not had the resources that kids have had. That is the truth. And I agree with that. And I think that there needs to be more support for adults. But you see the argument here, I think we're fighting against each other. And he takes on autism groups in a way that I take issue with. I take issue with. Read it, see what you guys think. But if that's the argument, perhaps you would get more traction if you would say, well, if we're saying that 1 in 59 children are on the autism spectrum, guess what's going to happen to those children? They grow into adults. So let's get the adult services in place right now. We both want the same thing. It's just that we're arguing about it in different ways. And you go through here to give lots of examples of why you don't think that the autism number is rising. But I really take issue with this idea that now suddenly there's better diagnosis for individuals who are on in these underserved populations, and so we're solving this. What if there are even more that aren't being diagnosed? What if the actual truth is that there is a higher prevalence among the African American population and the Latino population, because there's reason to suspect that there might be? What if that is the truth? Then that skews your whole number. And the truth is that nobody knows. Nobody knows. And to suggest that we do, I think is disappointing. So in any case, that's from Vox, and I want to encourage you to read it. And on a happier note, in Science Daily, you guys can read in Science Daily, the EEG signals accurately predict autism as early as 3 months. An EEG, which is not in any way invasive or painful, that they can take 3-month-old babies, and they've been able to take a control group and a group of kids who were more likely to be on the spectrum because they have a sibling, and we know statistically they are more likely if they have a sibling, and that I should have had you do this diagram, Samantha. Very clear. They were able to look at the EEGs and very successfully at 3 months predict which kids were going to have ASD, which kids were at high risk and service should be started anyway to mitigate, and which were at low risk and less likely. This is fascinating stuff. This is powerful. This is something that can really help us.